Thanks for inviting me. I love slides, so I've tried to cut down on them, but I might go kind of fast through some of them. If you have questions while I'm talking, go ahead. I've got Q&A at the end. Yeah, sometimes I start talking pretty fast. That's an East Coast thing, not a Southern thing. It stayed with me all these years in Nashville. Thanks for having me. I'm at Vanderbilt University, where I have been, I've been here since 2001, so about 24 years. I'm currently at Vanderbilt's Innovation Center, and through the years, I came here to be in the theater department. I'm trained as a costume designer. Classes that I've taught include costume design, which has a built-in connection to sustainable fashion because everything you make in the theater is reused. And whenever you do a show, you pull from storage and pull from stocks of stuff that's already been made and gets reused over and over again. So costume design that I chose to do when I was 19 already has a degree of sustainable fashion built in. I started teaching the history of fashion, ancient to modern, and realized when I started incorporating elements of sustainable fashion into the class that students were more interested in that topic than they were in the history of fashion. So I developed a class for first years. I was told by the theater department the only way I could teach sustainable fashion was as a first year writing seminar. So I did that, and I've cycled through a lot of first years who've taken the class, and a lot of whom have stayed with me over the years doing projects. So this is a topic that engages our college age students. This is a topic that's super interesting to young people. And I hate to say it, it's gotten worse since I've been teaching the subject. But students keep coming and they're interested. I'm currently not actually under the theater department anymore. I'm kind of a free agent here as a teaching staff at the Innovation Center. So I'm teaching in the art department a class called Runway Ready Sustainable Fashion as Sculptural Art. And I'm going to show you some examples later on. Is it okay, Melinda? This is kind of a lecture talk. Is that?
Sure.
I hope that's what
Go
you're doing.
for it.
Okay.
We'll
all right.
interrupt you.
Good. Yeah, just interrupt if you want to. So anyway, in that last slide, actually, I was going to show the building where I am is the small front building. I think we're 13,000 square feet. We've got 3 floors. Making is the second floor of our building. Actually, we've just gone down from 27 to 9 people at the Wond'ry. We've lost social innovation, we've lost entrepreneurship, but we are now making and design and innovation strategy. On the bottom right is my busy lab, which was a conference room, but kids, young people really want to learn how to sew. So that it's packed on that day with the picture I've got on there. But like there are a lot
Does it
of
surprise anybody else on this team? I was blown away when she told me how interested they are in learning how to sew.
I wanted to do this talk from the lab, but there are kids down there having a party practically right now. They're all hanging out and they're making skirts, and there's a guy trying on a skirt, and I could hardly get in there. And supposedly all the students have gone home for the summer. So that's a positive. I guess that's why I've got a job. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we consider to be the fashion system these days, textiles, fast fashion. Then we're going to look at some positives of the current fashion industry model. And then I've got Melinda's questions that you sent that I'm going to look at and then discuss. And again, interrupt me as I go if you want to. I could talk for days. So the fashion industry or the fashion system that some people in the industry refer to includes all phases of a garment's life cycle, from cultivating the fiber, producing the textile, designing the garments, manufacturing them, transporting all those parts and pieces, which these days is extremely global, retailing, consumer use, and disposing of things. So the pictures I have on the top left is a linear model, even though it's a half circle or an ellipse, that goes from growing the textile to consumer use. What we're trying to move towards, I'm sure you guys know this, is a circular model. So everything gets designed with the idea of it being reused multiple times. It sounds easy, but a circular design model is something that has to be, very engineered from the beginning. It's harder to do what we look at now, which is recycling, than it would be if we could come up with an idea of creating garments that were designed to have multiple lives and be recycled. I thought I'd just talk a little bit about textiles since informed consumption is important. And young people, my college students, hardly know the difference between polyester and cotton. Maybe you guys don't either, but I feel like growing up, this was something we knew about. So different types of fiber include natural fibers that come from different plants. What I consider to be semi-synthetic, I call that rayon. It's actually considered a synthetic textile. It's made from wood pulp, but it is processed with chemicals. So it fits into the synthetic fiber category, but really rayon acts to me more like a natural fiber than it does a synthetic. Synthetics are made from petroleum products. So any polyester we're looking at, acrylic, monocrylic, nylon, acetate, the textiles on that list, those are all petroleum-based textiles made with different chemical compositions, but these are all the same as a plastic bottle. We use up to 70 billion barrels of oil a year producing textiles. And the last category I have on there is high technology. We know we're looking at smart textiles with advanced features. I had a researcher in today talking to me about all these innovative research things she's doing over in one of our science departments, hoping I can embed sensors into wearables. And I think what she needs is a little more complicated than I can do, but this is certainly an ongoing issue these days, creating smart textiles, and those tend to be built into synthetic textiles as opposed to natural fiber
What do you
textiles.
mean sensors?
Oh, they'll read biometrics. Conductive thread
Oh,
can, tell you how hot you
okay.
are, what your heart rate is.
Got it.
We do embedding sensors to test kids with ADHD and behavioral
Wow.
disorders. There are labs all over campus that come in looking to have sensors embedded into things that do brain imaging and all kinds of advanced things with
Got it.
electronics. Our cotton and polyester market is 86% approximately of the global fiber market. And even if something's cotton, it has an environmental impact. Creating textiles creates waste and uses energy. So when we categorize textiles and I teach textile identification, I talk about the name of the fabric. I've got muslin here as an example, which is used as one of our draping fabrics. It's got a name. It's got a fiber content. Muslin's 100% cotton. It's got a weave. With muslin, it's a plain weave, which is different than a knit fabric, which is stretchier. There's no finish on here. We talk about the history of the textile and its defining characteristics. So muslin is a cotton, and just like that slide, sorry, this text got little. Cotton comes from the cotton plant, and it has certain characteristics, which to me the most important is absorbent. It's comfortable to wear in the heat, and that is just something about cotton that is unique from polyester. Here's polyester, and I'm not a scientist. I bet Melinda's husband Ed would understand this, but all these synthetic fibers are woven in certain chemical compositions, just different ones, all out of petroleum. And some characteristics of polyester are traditionally that it doesn't breathe, but it's durable. You can wash and dry it. And of course, we know these are becoming more and more performance oriented. So as we gain these wonderful elements of performance oriented textiles, they are synthetic fibers. So I feel like environmentalism and technology are really at odds when we look at our world of fabrics. In order to look at fabrics and understand what's in them, I'll do burn tests with my students. Cotton burns like paper. It's got a gritty debris. And then polyester burns like a plastic bottle. It melts and it turns into a bead of plastic. So there's no easier way to understand what we're dealing with than to melt your polyester shirt and see it just become literally plastic. Here's some high performance blends from Lululemon. And you can see the different textiles. And when you start looking at labels, you'll see these days, there isn't much that's 100% cotton or 100% polyester. They're blended. When we look at recycling fibers, it's easier to recycle monofilaments than it is multiple filaments. So again, these high performance textiles are at odds with our ability to recycle and reuse.
And what exactly does high performance mean in the fashion industry? High
Well,
performance.
I just think of it as, like running. You're such a great athlete, Melinda. Like
Yeah.
probably your bathing suits probably are made of a
Okay.
better fabric that what do? They breathe, they wick water, they dry quickly.
Got it.
So anything that helps with the performance aspect of our fibers is being engineered, usually by the DuPont company. They tend to be right in the
Right.
mix of engineering these things. Thanks for the questions. You guys, anything, just throw them out whenever you have them. So the world we live in today of textile, of the fashion industry it is called fast fashion. And the fast fashion industry is a really fast way of getting a design manufactured, produced, and sold. And this is often done abroad. 2% of our clothing is made in this country these days. So if you think about it, the information, the production, getting it to us can be a couple of weeks process these days. Fast fashion is an idea of producing clothes as fast as possible, selling them as fast as possible, disposing of them as fast as possible, and making and selling more stuff. Very hard on the environment, and I'll talk about some different elements of this, but I teach fashion history. The history of fashion always reflects cultural norms. And what does fast fashion reflect? I think it reflects our world of disposability,
Hmm.
generic elements, things with less personality to them, minimalism, minimal buttons, minimal decoration, comfort, convenience, designed for a fast-paced way of life, disposable, and superficial exchanges on social media. So this is just my personal list. So the idea of college students, they don't want to be seen twice in an outfit on Instagram. So where did they get that idea? Probably from the fashion industry, telling them through influencers. But if you think about fast fashion, it goes along so much with the way we look at the world today. So how are we going to eliminate it? It's going to have to cycle somehow. It's a huge challenge. And what is the fast fashion industry? I would call it an enormous unregulated disaster for our environment. I've got a list. It's terrible. It is 8 to 10% of our global carbon footprint. And then I have a former student who's now a dynamic New York designer. And she would say that the fast fashion industry is a treasure chest of opportunity because she can come up with all ways to solve the problem and create jobs for herself and her peers. So it always made me feel better when she came in and told me that because I find the whole thing kind of depressing. What has happened to allow this situation? It's been deregulation of exporting and importing. So there are just no regulations left about what comes in from other countries. They used to be in place and those regulations broke down. They were all bundled into something called the multi-fiber arrangement. They broke down between 1974 and 2005. And then NAFTA came in at, I think that says 1984. It's so little on my screen, I can't read it. 1984, 1994. And again, started allowing exports and imports from other countries, from Mexico, Canada. So these days, we have gone from the US making 95% of the clothes that we wear to 2% of the clothes that we wear, which really allows for deregulation of the process and deregulation of the protection of the environment. And then one other thing I just want to say from this slide, which I meant to say, is that a huge amount of what goes into making clothing is the labor. Sewing for garments is still done by people. It's not done by machines. Different aspects of making clothes are done by machines, but people are still at sewing machines making clothes. So in deregulating, you're also allowing very bad working conditions for people in the other countries who are doing the sewing. Bangladesh, India, China, Vietnam, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and the Philippines are main places. Jim.
Can I trust the label in my clothes, but particularly where it's made?
Can you trust it?
Yeah.
I think so. There's greenwashing that happens on a lot of levels. I don't know that it happens on that level. Fiber content, I think sometimes might not be correct, maybe because I don't think that's what we call greenwashing, which is just lying about what's gone into it. I think if an incorrect textile label is on there, it might just be kind of an oversight or a mistake. But even if something, let's say, is made in Bangladesh, I probably like what's being advertised about the auto industry these days. There might be parts and pieces made in other places that would be brought in. So the label might not be fully representative of every place that that clothing was made, especially where the fabric was manufactured. But from what I know, that should be pretty reliable. The fast fashion impacts are many, and I have four main ones. The environment. Yeah, Melinda.
Can I ask you a question? So, and maybe you're going to get to this. Since what did you say? 2% is made in the United States and all the rest is imported. So will tariffs, the expectation of tariffs on the stuff that's coming in, will that affect almost in a positive way, maybe? Although we don't have the facilities to make
I think
all
that's
these
it.
clothing, right?
I think that's it. The industry used to exist. I lived in New York in the 90s when it was still there to a degree. And there we used to have, I think in South Carolina, that used to be a main hub for weaving textiles. And I know
Yeah.
a lot of those mills have been turned into housing. We had a full infrastructure for creating clothes. And, this is what's wrong with these tariffs. And I've heard the auto industry say this, even American made cars aren't fully made in America. And yes, it's nice the idea you slap some tariffs on and all of a sudden stuff gets produced in this country, but we don't have any infrastructure left
We
to do
don't have
that.
it. That's what I figured.
So it's a nice
Thank
idea,
you.
sort of, not really. But even if it would logical and not so much more expensive, um, yeah, I can't imagine. We have some manufacturing plants here. But of course, they're much more expensive than buying. I mean, you have to change the whole mindset of buying these cheap clothes, which is not going to be changed easily. So it's pretty complicated, more complicated than I can even imagine, I'm sure. Fast fashion to me hurts the environment. Um, human rights, treatment of workers, get paid slave wages to make our clothes. The insane, obscene number of clothes that we buy, have access to, and have just come to expect. I think we've lost cultural heritage, which might be a good thing. Globalization has, if you travel now, people don't look different or so unique as they used to. So that implies globalization, which to a degree is a good thing, but how much of our cultural heritage through textiles do we want to hold on to? And then I think consumers are really hurt by the industry. We are manipulated into buying tons of stuff we don't need, we don't want, and even if it seems like a great deal, it's just a massive amount of stuff. Speaking personally, because I'm addicted to buying stuff myself. I can't claim to be some saint in this whole process. Slow fashion, which would be made locally, is considered a conscious and sustainable approach to clothing production and consumption. It's considered to be ethical, eco-friendly, long-lasting clothing. It implies buying fewer, better quality pieces that will last longer, made with sustainable materials and fair labor practices. I've kind of peppered in some good resources, and Linda, I could send you this PowerPoint, or I could make a couple of slides with resources if you guys want me to.
You send me the PowerPoint pack and I will include it in the minutes.
Okay, all right. I've got some videos and some sites on here.
Okay.
Fast fashion is designed around micro trending and planned obsolescence. The idea of trends coming and going super fast and things that we buy being considered disposable. It's a business model. It's achieved through marketing and influencers put out by the industry to tell people what to buy, how much to buy. And nothing I ever say to any student or anyone is to make anyone feel guilty, because this is an extremely manipulative industry. So different ways that the industry manipulates us to purchase include constant sales, countdown clocks that get your heart racing, constant ads, which of course support Facebook and all social media pressure, influencers, messages that life will be better if you buy more stuff, the use of algorithms so that they can track down what you might be interested in and have those ads be very personalized to you, and changing styles that come and go super fast, that planned obsolescence. These sale signs I've got are also based in color theory. So I kind of think one way out of this is for people to understand how visual manipulation happens. So these red, yellow, warm colors manipulate us into buying things and how we see. So I got just a little color theory information on here. Here's our color wheel. Primary colors on the left, complementary colors on the right. Complements are created through the mixing of two primaries. If you look across the color wheel, you get a warm and cool mix. So the complement of red is green, the complement of yellow is is violet, and the complement of blue is orange. When manufacturers mix warm and cool colors, especially complements, or use bright and dark color mixes, those will catch your eye more so than other things. Our whole world is designed around color theory, as long as you're not colorblind, in which case you'll see some of these things a little differently. Red stop sign is to stop, green is to go. Warm advances and cool recedes. So everything in our life that is meant to say go or stop, go will be the cooler color and stop will be the warmer color. So advertisers use this color theory all the time to get us to be hungry or to want to buy something. So when you see these sale signs, you can kind of see how the colors are manipulating you into seeing the messaging that they want you to see. In contrast to our fast fashion disposable model, I showed this already, but just this idea of circularity. And I know you guys probably talk a lot, know all about circularity. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation organization, that is a website about fashion sustainability and circularity. That's excellent. I only have one slide for a positive element of the fashion industry, the fast fashion industry model, and that is the democratization of fashion. So here's Michelle Obama on the Today Show wearing a dress from Target. So everyone these days, because of fast fashion, can dress in a way that allows you to look well for a job interview, allows you to dress like Michelle Obama, who shows up on TV in a $35 dress. So if you aspire to be, First Lady, you can wear what she wears. So that goes along also with our world that has, at times, democratized. So fast fashion does allow for this to take place. So that's a positive. So here are your questions, Melinda. I'm finally anyway, everybody okay with the speed? Okay. How bad is the waste? It's really bad. What is textile waste? I've looked all this stuff up. These are great questions. I've done a bunch of research just because I'm super interested in this topic. I don't know everything. So textile waste in the fashion industry and in general seems to include clothing, fabric scraps, and any items made from woven or knit fabrics. These can be pre-consumer fabric offcuts and discarded materials. This can be post-consumer discarded clothing, can be industrial textiles, and it can be sort of home goods. So this is all textile-based information. Karen?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that here in Philadelphia, we have an offshoot of a company that was started, I think, in Brooklyn, but definitely in New York City, called Fab Scrap. And they take leftover textiles, I think, from manufacturers. And so we have one of those recycling centers here in Philadelphia.
That's awesome. So I guess stuff can become carpet insulation, filling, a variety of things, industrial rags.
And they sell it. They sell it to people who want to make stuff.
Yeah, I
Good.
saw an article, it was a couple years ago, right? It was in the Inquirer or something like that. And I think I might have sent it on to you, Alex, but because I was looking for myself where to get rid of some of the stuff, but it does take from the commercial, the bulk stuff.
Good. It's so hard to know. So can you guys just take stuff to Fab Scrap and drop it off and know that it's going to become something?
No,
they-
they do. No,
Okay.
they don't get donations from individuals. I think they get it all from manufacturers.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Wouldn't it be neat to get a tour of a place like that and see how they do it? Wonder if they let anybody in.
They do.
Yeah, I'm sure they would, yeah.
That would be cool.
You come up, Alex, I'll go with you.
Okay, yeah. That sounds great. It's tricky breaking this stuff down. Um, here's some stats about global waste. You guys can read through them. This is just when you ask what the situation is, that's why I say it's bad. There's just a lot. Just endless amounts of waste. And it goes to landfills, it can be incinerated. And then some better options are recycling, like Fab Scrap seems to do, donating, upcycling, and repurposing. Elizabeth Klein, I knew when I talked to Melinda about talking to you guys, she wrote the book that makes my students interested in the topic and that got me interested in this topic. She wrote it in 2011. It's called Overdress, The Shockingly High Cost of Cheap Fashion. She's a journalist, so this isn't a super academic book to read. It is like the history of how fast fashion has come about. And if you hear anything on NPR or the radio about a factory in Bangladesh, falling down, Elizabeth Klein will be interviewed about it. She is a real expert in this topic, and I knew that she one of her main goals in life is to work on the textile waste stream in New York. So I read a bunch of her articles in anticipation of talking to you, and here she is. The other book she's written is called The Conscious Closet, and that encourages people how to have their own conscious wardrobe and live more consciously in terms of textile waste. If you want to learn more about the topic, you can look her up on YouTube, and she's always interesting to listen to. This is a chart from her book, What Happens to Clothing Once It's Recycled, shows that it's reused, cut down to use for industrial rags, reprocessed, and about 5% is not usable. This is from an article.
I know, I myself, I hesitated to put into not recycle, but like Green Drop, they come around and they pick up clothing, or to drop it off at the thrift shop. If it could be resold, I was like, well, I'm not going to donate that because that's kind of embarrassing. But somehow I learned, I mean, it wasn't very evident that, oh no, instead they'll rip up the t-shirts and use them as rags, industrial rags. But that's not common knowledge. I mean, even I was so involved in this and I didn't know that. So I thought, well, they're not going to want this t-shirt. But is that true? They'll take that and they'll sell it as rags?
They can, when they pick up your clothes, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Seems to go to different purposes. You know, Salvation Army and Goodwill just cannot process all of it. A lot of it
Oh,
gets bundled and sent to Africa to clothing resale fairs or what are they called? Just events. So, and this has been going on for years. And other countries will get our scraps and our old clothes, and they'll be bundled. They don't know what they're buying.
oh,
And then it goes to a used clothing market. And if nobody wants to buy it there, it gets burned or thrown
yeah.
on the beach or thrown into a desert. So it's terrible. And basically as fast fashion gets cheaper and sort of the clothing doesn't hold up as well, the bundles that other countries are getting are less and less desirable. So really a lot of the stuff gets burned. And even
Okay.
companies that have a lot of money will burn their stuff. I guess there was it Burberry who had that issue a couple years ago where they were caught burning stuff that hadn't sold so people couldn't buy it at lesser cost.
Oh, wow.
Karen?
I have a relative who worked in this, spent his career in the State Department and worked in some of those countries that you're mentioning. And he watched as the local textile makers basically were put out of business because of all this cheap donated clothing that came pouring into the country. And everybody is walking around with, t-shirts with sports slogans and whatever else on them. And people who used to make a living weaving and making clothing no longer had markets.
Isn't that awful? And there are a lot of, if you read about sustainable designers, there are a lot of African designers in different parts of Africa who will design based on the landscape and use local tailors and, textile dyeing techniques. I mean, it is a place, just to generalize, with beautiful arts, crafts, and connections to nature. And like Karen's saying, I mean, this fast fashion industry, it's kind of killing, you know, those businesses all over the world. Let's not everybody get too depressed. It's will make a difference. This is an article that a friend shared with me. It is a German company that's working on recycling textiles and trying to take polyester and make it into a better textile than it was before. So I guess when you recycle textiles, cotton will kind of get less, just be less desirable textile. Polyester, if you break it down, will be less desirable. And this company, I guess, is making inroads. I've got it in here just as a representation of the idea that textile companies are trying to develop ways to better recycle textiles. Of course, one might ask, if you made fewer textiles and sold less stuff, would you have to have this whole industry working on recycling? Well, Linda's next question, does the textile or fashion industry really care? I mean, for the most part, I would say no, but I've got some examples of people and places that do. This is Patagonia's buyback program or don't buy this jacket program, trying to encourage people to just buy what they need. A lot of companies these days have take back programs or rebuy programs. And H&M has some. Here's some of H&M's advertising around sustainability. They produce about 3 billion garments a year, each year from 0.7% recycled materials. Elizabeth Klein writes that she believes that their idea of talking about their recycling is just to manipulate their consumers. And by having a take back program, they don't actually have to change any of their methodologies. They just get the positive sustainable feedback from having these programs. So greenwashing, does H&M care? I don't know. Possibly not. Here's someone who does care. This is someone who used to be at the Wond'ry and used to run the Wond'ry. She's left the Wond'ry to work on her business called Couture Technologies. Here's a great solution. She is super interested in lessening the amount of stuff we buy and we order and receive and then send back. She found that people were ordering 20 dresses to end up with one dress. So she is creating, I think, what is going to be certainly the future of fashion, of online fit. So you put in your measurements and or photographs. It creates an avatar of you, and then you try the clothes on virtually. It's called virtual fit. You try stuff on and you see what these clothes look like before you order them. She has gotten funding in the millions of dollar range. And not only does she do the virtual fit, she has her stuff manufactured. She's got a company called Freedom Company. It's manufactured in this country in Phoenix. If you go onto her website, you'll see the inside of the factory. It's not a sweatshop. And ethically made, ethically sourced. And one other thing I was going to say about it. Oh, and it's on demand production. So they only make the clothes once they're ordered. It takes a little longer to get them, but they don't end up with stocks of things that nobody wants. So that is Dina Medor with Couture Technologies. Stella McCartney, there are a lot of designers working on sustainable fashion initiatives. This is Paul McCartney's daughter, went to St. Martin's, which is where Alexander McQueen went, and she has really high-end stuff. She's known for not using leather, and I don't think some of her stuff looks, I don't know, it looks a little expensive for what it is. What she's doing, even though she has a high-end retail consumer, she's doing a lot of R&D, a lot of research and development, and creating new textiles that I think are going to drip down into the market. So even if she's creating stuff for a high-end buyer, she's making a difference by innovating in ways that are going to serve this sustainable market. She really is very well known and respected in the industry. This is a designer some of my students found, buying old denim, remaking it. This is pretty darn difficult to do. Take two pieces of jeans, cut them, fit them together, and make them actually work. But it's a noble idea, and the stuff is fun. So Anna Foster, there are tons of sustainable designers out there. What can we do as consumers? I found this on the Earth Day website. And Melinda, you had asked if there's someone you could write to, someone you could call. So here are a couple of numbers on the Earth Day website. Some other strategies: make more careful choices when purchasing, look for ethical designers and companies. Transparent pricing is going to be coming out. Tags that tell you what the environmental cost has been. Increase use of clothes. Make textiles a precious commodity again, something that people will care about. Give your clothes a longer life. Repair them. Do clothing swaps, and find the right place for donations. Vivienne Westwood's buy less, choose well, make it last. That's kind of a mantra in the sustainable industry. When you guys get the PowerPoint, consumers do 52 ways to invest in our planet. This is a page that has all kinds of tricks for sustainable living on that Earth Day site. This is something we don't have in this country. These are in Japan. These are filters to filter out microplastics for the washing machine. A huge environmental problem, as we know, are microplastics. Well, of course, other countries have made investments that this country hasn't. If there was a way to get these microfiber filters that I hear almost nothing about, standard feature, that would be awesome. There's also something called a Guppy Friend bag, which is something you put your garments in the washing machine in that are going to shed microplastics like fleece.
Say no right now.
And they'll catch it.
You're needing some manpower for.
Get away from this.
And then I think this is the last question. What long-term positive effects have I seen with my work at Vanderbilt? And the problem has gotten worse since I've been here, but I see a renaissance with young people in interest in handcraft, sewing, buying secondhand clothes, doing stuff with their hands. This is a multi-tiered thing that excites me. I think young people are getting anxiety and stress relief by working with their hands. And like I said, they're packed down in my lab. They build community, they put their cell phones down, and they just seem to be super interested in kind of back to nature, back to handcraft ideas. I look at this as the equivalent, in a way, of the arts and crafts movement in the 19th century. You get the Industrial Revolution, and then you get a contrast, which is William Morris's arts and crafts movement. And it feels like every time you get a world of high technology, high tech, some kind of high touch is brought in to balance it out. So this happened in the 19th century. And unfortunately, the same result that we had that happened then of craftsmen making things to get to sell to individuals who were middle class so they would stay connected to handcraft. Those things were too expensive for the people they were designed and made for to buy. Same thing today. Sustainable fashion is super expensive that's made in this country. So these designers who are making things sustainably are kind of out of the price range of my students. So that's something we could try to do something about. We teach sustainable practices. I teach workshops in sewing, upcycling, and repairs. I get lots of students coming. We are upcycling. Here is a quote from one of my students. My journey in design and fashion sustainability has been a multifaceted exploration of hands-on skills, creativity, and consciousness, illuminating the interconnectedness of artistry, commerce, and environmental stewardship in the modern fashion landscape. So Ella Berman, I just thought that was beautiful.
Hey, Jim, don't get rid of your ties. I can make that. All right,
Yeah.
give me your old ties.
Yeah,
I love
so
that thing on the left.
isn't it fun? Yeah, so those are a
Yes.
few of them. I've got some more tie things coming up. I only have a few minutes left, so I'm going to reuse is trending in Nashville. These are the Goodwill bins where I go and get a lot of ties and all kinds of junk for students to recycle. This is recycle by the pound. And here are some other things they've made with old ties and old denim. They're constantly upcycling old things. So this was a student fashion show, and some things that some of my students made who are not design students, they just come in for fun and make this stuff. This is another dress out of ties, and the dress on the right is a man's shirt made into a top and a skirt. I'm teaching a class about sustainable fashion and sculptural art. So on the left, this was a student idea. Take a dress I bought at the bins at Goodwill and make it into Van Gogh's Starry Night. So I'm going to give this as an assignment so we can think more about fashion as art and less about it as just a disposable thing. And we've been inspired by some different pieces. Art made out of recycled elements is trending. So I know you guys are trying to come up with solutions. The best solution I can think of is coming up with public art that shows the idea of recycling. This is at the Tennessee Aquarium, the beautiful seahorse with brooms up on the head. And this is a whale in Belgium made out of plastic bottles that were found. And that's it. We only have a few minutes. I have other slides. I'll send it. I have a whole bunch of regulations that other countries have been developing in terms of moving forward. There are regulations that are
possible
and being developed. Yes.
Thank you. Wow, that was so, I was fascinated. Thank you so much. And it's very similar to food waste, buy less. Plastics, buy less. upcycle, recycle, reuse. So it's kind of the same problem.
I think it is.
It
Yeah.
doesn't get the attention nobody thinks about when they toss it. They don't.
Isn't it
Maybe there
crazy?
should be more clothing littering the highways, like plastic bottles, where it's like, oh yeah, that is a problem. Helena, you're the youngest in this group. What, um, when Alex was talking about the Renaissance kind of thing,
Yeah,
how do you feel about that? Or what's your thoughts?
it doesn't surprise me too much. I mean, the comment about people being into sewing and things also doesn't surprise me too much. My generation, I think a lot of us are really aware of the problems in our world, and we're really trying to do something about it. And there's a lot of a term called climate anxiety. I don't know if you all have heard of that concept,
Mhm.
but that's been floating around a lot, with at least within my circles. And just we see all the problems in our world, and we're like, well, what can we do about this? Because I think it started out with a lot of despair and a lot of like anxiety about it. And I think a lot of us are seeing because there's influencers, and then there's also like environmental influencers that I've been following along
Yes.
on social media, and that's been
Okay.
really bringing me a lot of hope. And I've been a thrifter all my life. I grew up
Okay.
in thrift stores. I grew up wearing secondhand stuff. Like I would get new clothes for like Christmas and my birthday every now and then. I'd be all excited because it wasn't hand-me-downs for once. But that's been my entire life. And it's been really cool because a lot of people that I'm around do a lot of thrifting and do a lot of upcycling. And I think, as I said, none of this really surprises me to hear Alex talk. Because
I'm glad to hear that. I'm really glad
yeah,
to hear
it's
that.
it's been really cool. A lot of us are really into trying to make our clothing last as long as it can.
I know
That's
my son, and Alex knows my son Brad. He on sometimes his first dates were go to a thrift store, and they would have a contest and then they would go out to dinner with their new purchases. But I thought that was a rather fun idea on his part, and they had a good time. He's done it more than once. With maybe that's why he doesn't go out with a girl second time. He
Gotta
cheats
find the
on
right one.
You're right. Exactly.
Helena, how do your friends learn how to sew? I mean, I see this disconnect. A lot of people want to learn how
Yeah.
to sew, and who's going to teach them? I know
Yeah,
YouTube teaches
I
it.
I was fortunate that I grew up in Girl Scouts, so like I learned how to sew being in Girl Scouts. But um yeah, that's a really good question. A lot of
Yeah.
people are finding out about this like mending and things on YouTube,
Mhm.
honestly. Like a lot of us are watching YouTube videos. There's like tutorials on TikTok, there's tutorials on Instagram. Like a lot of us are using social media to be able to learn these skills. And I mean, we're talking like stuff that you'd learn in, well, for me, it was family and consumer sciences, but for most people, it was like home ec and those kind of classes that I don't know if they're even still offered in the schools,
They're not.
but
No.
that's how I learned a lot of things too, is I learned how to cook, I learned how to sew, but like a lot of people are learning these kind of skills through YouTube videos and such.
Feels like
Karen, do
young
you have a
people want to
question?
learn them.
Yeah.
Karen, do you have a question? Your hand's still up or no?
Yeah, it's ironic that we're having this session on the same day as the Met Gala.
Yeah.
And even though I'm about the slowest fashion person I know, also a thrift store devotee, I will leaf through these pictures because I find them just sort of horrible and fascinating. And the people, especially the women, mostly they just look ridiculous. And I don't understand the motivation behind creating clothes that look so silly. And I'm wondering if you have any insight in that.
I think it's the uniqueness, probably, right? The more different, the more they stand out, and as Jim says, yeah, then the designers get more. But I'll let Alex answer that.
Well, looks like Jim got his hand up.
No, I was just giving the universal sign of money. Right?
Yeah,
That I think what you see on the red carpet is the couture element, and we look at the history of haute couture, which are companies that created high-end garments, and they are now, there are not that many of them left. Chanel, Dior, so that runway is kind of their place to sort of create their reputation, even though what they show isn't what you would wear on the street or buy. It kind of helps brand them. And
Mhm.
so much of fashion is branding these days. And it's theatrical. People love theater. I think they like things that are bigger than life. Even if you wouldn't wear them yourself, I've worked in theater for so long. Like the crazier thing you put up on stage, the more people are kind of engaged because it's different than the everyday.
Yeah.
I
It's like
think
a
it's
car
really
accident. You drive by a car accident, it's like, it's horrible, but you can't help but look. You can see this fashion, it's horrible, but I still want to look.
Yeah, we like bigger
It's very
than life.
it's very complicated. Yeah. Alex, thank you so much. Patricia, do you have a question?
Or an explanation and a comment. I live in the Roxborough part of the city of Philadelphia, and only a block away is a Salvation Army facility. They have a store that's actually worked by the guys that live there in the building, who are all different kinds of emotional, physical, drug problems, all that. But they collect, they take everything. Anybody can drop anything off. They don't take furniture anymore, but anybody can drop off any kind of clothing, household goods. Everything gets washed, ironed, put up on hangers, and sold in their stores. It's absolutely amazing, the variety of stuff. They do have a lot of stuff from companies who haven't been able to sell it, I think, in the neighborhood, but they also have a lot of beautiful old stuff that people don't want to use anymore or whatever. It's right on Peach Street here in Roxborough, only a block away from me. And it's amazing that the neighbors here, they still toss their clothes that they don't want into the trash can. They don't even,
Yes.
they're not even willing to walk a block away to get it reused. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, been known to do trash picking, like, oh, gotta get out there. Okay, we are at the end, and thank you again. Where'd she go? Oh, there she is.
Thanks,
Alex,
you guys. I'd love to
I'll
hear
look
the
forward to.
solution you come up with.
Well, I think, Jim, one of the things after we've had a series of presentations that gathering this information is like, okay, what can our group focus on? What more can we do? So um, we're looking at all different things, and we can do little
I'm going to
things.
make it just an old-fashioned plug. If you guys can find teachers, there will be students who want to learn how to sew. So Helena's information, like there's a need with young people, and it's somebody's, some of us older people must be good at sewing. How can you create these Girl Scout programs, these school programs, these places for young people to come and put their phones down and make things and be problem solvers and creative? It helps them emotionally, spiritually, communally, everything. It's a big ask, but it feels like it's just waiting to happen.
Yeah,
So anyway,
good idea. Great plug.
that's my plug.
It's an excellent idea.
All right, thank you,
Okay,
Alex.
Yeah.
everybody okay? We're good. Thank you again.